Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 186 of Who's the Bossk, and we will be discussing the latest episode of Lucasfilm's animated series Star Wars: The Bad Batch on Disney Plus. For that conversation, I have invited back on the show my friend and fellow Laughing Place contributor, Bill Gowsell. Bill, how are you? Thank you for coming back on Who's the Bossk to talk some Star Wars with me.
Hey, Mike. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me back. When you put it out there about coming back to talk about the Bad Batch, I jumped at the opportunity. Absolutely love the storyline, love the show. I love the Bad Batch themselves from tech to wrecker, and I don't know if you can see, I'm blocking it, but I've got a couple of them right behind me there on the bookshelf there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing this and just talking about the whole show itself.
Great. Yeah, so you got a couple of the action figures. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, excited to get into the Bad Batch with you, but first we have to cover some other stuff. Like, we have to mention that we are recording live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. If you would like to comment along, we'll be happy to address any questions or concerns you may have. Kristen Moore in the comments here says, hi. Hello. Kristen. So if you would like to comment, please do. Otherwise, Bill, what's been going on with you in your life, or what has been going on with you in your contributions to Laughing Place? You do a regular column called Touchstone and Beyond. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, every Sunday. Actually, I'm just taking a couple weeks off there from diving back into the movie vault of Disney from Touchstone Pictures and Hollywood Pictures, and trying to dig up the past relics that seem to either have been removed from Disney Plus or hiding out there on YouTube and haven't been put out onto streaming, and kind of discovering all those, more adult content that was put out starting in 1984 until about the mid 2000s from Disney's Touchstone label. Found some treasures, found some beauties, found some movies I don't ever need to watch again, which is par for the course, I guess.
Okay.
And I just finished up with Percy Jackson about a couple months ago, covering that and looking at that show. And I'm currently looking at reviewing and providing recaps for Under the Bridge, the new Hulu show that should be coming out next week. It's not a happy show, I'll tell you that, but stars Lily Gladstone and Riley Keough, and they're just fantastic.
Yeah, as in regards to Percy Jackson, I went and covered a press junket for that because you couldn't make it down here to Southern California, and I got to briefly interview the showrunners for that, so that was delightful getting to meet them. But what did you end up thinking of the full season now that it's over?
I read the book along at the same time, and as watching the show and reading the book, yes, there were a few changes from the book to the show, but I mean that's essential. And I thought the adaptation was not only perfectly done, but the additions that they brought in really highlighted the characters and gave us some more details that the book has freedom to take several chapters to play out. And I thought the show was excellent. I can't wait for season 2 and 3 and probably 4 and 5 to cover those first 5 books.
Great. Yeah. So happy to hear for you that it did get renewed for a second season. It seems like so many Disney Plus shows got canceled, but that one did survive. So
oh my goodness. Yes.
I guess people are watching it and enjoying it like you. So
I was shocked that it took so long for it to get the renewal. I would have thought after they released the numbers for the first couple of episodes, and the numbers were fantastic. I would have thought that would have been the renewal right there, but I guess not.
Yeah. All right, let's get into something called the 5 Star Wars questions. Bill, this is your 4th time on Who's the Bossk. That means you're up to level 4 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Are you ready for these?
I've got some good answers, and I'm curious to see if anyone else has chosen some of the things I've chosen.
Okay, so let's go with level 4 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Number 1, do you have a favorite Star Wars weapon? And if you happen to select a lightsaber or blaster, which I feel like chances are you might, please be specific as to its model or owner.
Han Solo's blaster. I love that. I love the shape. I love the versatility of it. It's just so cool. It's got that beautiful design that goes perfectly on your hip if you're going to be a smuggler out in space, and it seems pretty powerful. So that's definitely
Yeah.
my choice.
I believe that's called the DL-44 blaster.
DL-44.
And, yeah, I think I wanna say that was also my choice. So you were wondering if you were gonna, have any overlap with others. Great, a cool looking Star Wars blaster modeled after a real world, German weapon, but, yeah, really, g popular choice there. I keep telling my friend Nick, I was like, "I wish they were selling blaster replicas in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge the way they do with
The lightsabers,
lightsabers."
yes.
And I understand the reason why they don't because, I probably 15 years ago, I did buy a toy version of Han Solo's blaster at Disneyland, and then they stopped selling any kind of gun
Yeah.
at the parks because of the gun violence issue, which makes perfect sense to me, but I just kinda wish for numerous reasons, I wish that weren't an issue, but I also wanna be able to get, like, all the different Star Wars blasters. I think that
Oh
would be
yeah.
so cool.
Well, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that it's not available on the Disney Store where you can order from them.
Yeah,
It just I I have no desire to own a lightsaber, but
right.
I could be talked into buying the blaster. That's for
Sa
sure.
Same with me. I don't care about lightsabers that much. I have a few of them. Oh, and you can see my this is
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
if you can make it out. There's the Han Solo blaster. I
yeah.
had to spray paint it black because it was red
Oh,
when
I've
I
got the
bought
red
it.
one. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was my son had it, and then I sort of borrowed it
Yeah.
and reclaimed it for my own. So yeah, I use it to shoot the Nerf darts at him whenever he walks by. So
There you go.
yeah,
All right, let's get to, number 2 here. Which Star Wars actor has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
wow, it's Harrison Ford. I mean,
Yeah.
I absolutely love everything that Mark Hamill has done with Joker on Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher's work has been great. I loved her in The Burbs, but Harrison Ford, I mean, from Indiana Jones to The Fugitive to Jack Ryan to now he's going to be in Marvel as President Ross. I mean,
Right.
he spanned most of my life, and I just Harrison Ford for sure, hands down.
Yeah, that's a popular choice too. I don't think he was mine, but definitely up there for me, and yeah, you mentioned some great movies there. The Fugitive, oh, I could watch that movie over and
Oh, I
over and
know.
over again.
It's so good, and I love the backstory on it where Joe Pantoliano talks about his first day on set, and Tommy Lee Jones pulls him aside and he says, "I hope you like good food. I hope you like good wine, because that's what we'll do a lot of. We'll drink a lot of good wine. We'll eat a lot of good food, but no one's getting an Oscar for this movie." And Tommy Lee Jones ends up winning the Oscar.
That's
So
pretty funny. That's
yeah,
pretty great. All right, number 3, same question. Instead of actor, we're going with director. Which Star Wars director from movies or TV has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
I I thought long and hard about this, and I thought, oh, George Lucas, no. Love George Lucas, but Bryce Dallas Howard. I
Okay.
I love her work on the shows. I love how she has been inspired and influenced by her dad, but also putting her own mark on her work. And I'm excited to see what she is going to do. I know she signed on. I think she's still signed on for a reboot of Flight of the Navigator, another
That's right.
fabulous
Yeah, I heard about that.
1980s Disney film. I'm looking forward to seeing what she does there, and hopefully, I would love to see her get a Star Wars feature film.
That would be awesome. And yeah, really great actress, obviously, outside of the Star Wars franchise. She got to voice Yaddle
Yes,
in the Tales of the Jedi animated series,
Yes.
and I do find it interesting. Obviously, Bryce Dallas Howard is what you would call a nepo baby. She's born of Hollywood royalty, but it is interesting to see someone like that who has been an actor for a long time and then wants to get into directing, and then like you see like John Favreau kind of take her under his wing, and she learns how to direct. She learns how to direct in a very unique situation because the way that the Mandalorian is filmed is so different
Yeah.
than everything else. So I will be very curious to watch her career as a director coming out of this and see how she adjusts to kind of other films, other franchises, other types of filmmaking.
Well,
But yeah.
well, Mike, I'll ask you, the whole nepo baby label. I
Right.
mean, I understand that like people are looking for something to focus on and
Yeah.
complain. And I mean, is it really a fair label? I mean,
It's
she
yeah. It's
like,
not.
especially, yeah, like for Bryce Dallas Howard, like her work on The Help, maybe the movie has issues, but her range,
Yeah.
I mean, her ability. I mean, it's not like she's going around, "Hey, I'm Ron Howard's daughter." I mean,
Right.
obviously the last name, but her work is varied. I mean, it's a talent. I mean, if you grow up in talent,
Yeah.
obviously, and you inherit it and show it, why not?
Sure. I mean, if Star Wars has proven anything, it's that talent runs in the family. And yeah, we talked about my friend David and I talked about on this podcast how Carrie Fisher was also a
Well,
big Nippo
exactly.
baby. And yes, there is something to be said about people having better access to the Hollywood machine, but you still have to prove yourself via talent.
Well,
uh,
exactly.
yeah,
That's precisely it.
yeah,
You got to prove yourself. And some actors of or some children who go on to become actors of famous actors, they prove that, oh no, they do not have the talent. And then,
yes,
I mean, you look at someone like Jack Quaid, who has done so much. I mean,
yeah.
it's always kind of give me the shivers whenever I hear the nepo baby. It's
I
just,
I
oh,
use
come
it with
on.
air quotes around it, and I thought if we were to get another cat, I might name it Nepo Baby, but
Oh,
number
that'd be great.
number 4. What is your favorite Star Wars? Oh, this is a good one. What is your favorite Star Wars reference or Easter egg in other media? And the example I always cite is in Back to the Future when Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly says, "My name is Darth Vader," and he gives the Vulcan salute. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're
what do
talking
you
about
think?
for
Yeah.
me, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Toy Story 2, and
Okay.
first you get the opening where you see Buzz land on Zurg's planet, and then you see the whole battle in the elevator. No, Buzz Lightyear, I'm your father, and it's just I love it. I love it every time. I've watched that movie countless times since it's come out, and every time I always laugh, I smile, I giggle. Yeah, for sure. The whole Zurg Buzz Lightyear dynamic.
Yeah, that's awesome. So many great Star Wars references coming out of that movie for sure. I definitely got a kick out of that. Seeing it in the theater. What year would that have been? 99 or
1999. Yeah,
yeah. Boy, I
yeah, no,
remember that fondly.
1999.
I gotta
Uh,
watch those Toy Story movies again, leading up to 5, whenever that is scheduled to come out. But
Mike, I gotta. I personally, we're going sidetrack here, but I got to
yeah,
get this off my
please
chest.
do. Please do.
Toy Story 1 is great. Toy Story
Yes.
2, fantastic, better than the
Yeah.
first. Toy Story 3, beautiful ending. Toy
Yes.
Story 4 is a great film, but I do not like it at all. I do not like the ending. I do not rank it as a great film at all.
I agree with you. I don't particularly care for 4, and I do think they should have left it at the end of
Yes.
3.
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
real problem with the lesson of part 4 because who voices is it Bryce Dallas Howard who's the villain of that movie? Is it
Yes.
her bringing it back around?
But see, it's all connected.
Her character wants to perform surgery on Woody to steal his voice box, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just found it so off-putting that they were able to, like, forgive her for that, and then he, like, gives it to or he doesn't give it to her in the end because
No,
he can still talk. I forget what happens, but
but
um,
I hate I mostly my wife is absolutely if she agrees with me on this too. It's the ending though of
yeah,
Woody leaving Buzz and everybody else and leaving Bonnie.
yeah,
And that is I didn't like the portrayal of Bonnie. I didn't like how they switched Bonnie into this child who totally abandoned Woody but loved everybody else. But the idea that Woody would actually compromise everything that he said for
yeah.
the past three, no, I'm out. You've lost me.
I think that's probably, I mean, the real reason is a dollar sign, but there is
Oh yeah,
another reason, a story reason to go back and have these characters reunite because you do at least want to see the toys end up together. You know that the kids are going to grow up one
oh
after
yeah,
another, but you want to see those toys end up somewhere
yeah.
together.
Well,
So I imagine we'll get that.
I would love it if Woody is found by Andy and it ends up being this reunification of all his
Yeah.
toys because Andy is now an adult and he has kids and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's just my hope. So
Well, we will
yeah.
find out whenever Toy Story. I think it's 2025 or something. 20. I don't know. Yeah,
2026, I think.
2026. Okay. Let's see. The fifth of the five Star Wars questions, level 4. What is your favorite Lucasfilm project outside of the Star Wars franchise? I think I have an inkling of what you might choose here.
I think you do. Indiana Jones
Yeah.
with and I am a fan of Crystal Skull. It's got problems. I we won't
Yeah.
discuss that. And I really enjoyed Dial of Destiny, mostly just because I loved that character and I loved the arc of seeing Harrison Ford go from Raiders of the Lost Ark to Dial of Destiny and see that complete journey. It wasn't
Yeah.
perfect, but anytime you get to see your favorite character in a world that you really like, hey, sign me up. I'm there.
My wife was so worried about his old bones in number 5, but he didn't do as much. He didn't get beat
No,
up as much in this one as he did in the previous one. So
no, no, and that's the thing about he played it old, and
yeah,
I we saw the de-aging and we saw how everything went like that, but ah, it was a good time at the movie theater.
great, perfect. You've got one more level of the 5 Star Wars questions left next time
Yes.
you come on the show. So let's get into some Star Wars headlines for this week. The big one coming out of the world of video games is a game called Star Wars Outlaws released its story trailer, and we now know the release date for this game, which is August 30th, near the end of the summer there. I'm very excited for this game, mostly because it is not about Jedi. I fully embrace the Jedi as a part of the Star Wars mythology, but I don't need them to be everything everywhere all at once.
Well, yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that's kind of where my love of the Bad Batch really
yeah,
it's not Jedi, it's
right.
the clones and the acolyte. Well, it is the Jedi. I'm interested to see a whole different world of this very familiar place. So
I do feel like video games, by and large, have mostly focused on the Jedi. There have been some exceptions. I remember there was like a Jango Fett bounty hunter game,
mhm.
so that's cool. But yeah, this is all about the Star Wars underworld. You see Jabba the Hutt pop up in the trailer, and you're basically a smuggler or a scoundrel, and you're running around driving speeders and shooting people with blasters instead of fighting with a lightsaber. Did you happen to watch this trailer, Bill?
I caught there was something I caught a bit of it where whoever the main character is, the girl, she's like sign me up or she says something like that. And I thought it looked
Mhm.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's being released on? Is it Nintendo? Is it Xbox or PlayStation?
I believe it's PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC.
Oh, I'm still on PlayStation 4.
Okay.
I haven't graduated yet. One day I will.
Well, there you go. And video games are great if you wait like a year and get them for much cheaper, you know. So
Yeah.
if you just happen to be like behind, you can it's
Oh
more
yeah.
affordable a hobby. So
Well, these
uh,
80 and $90
right.
price tags out
Yeah.
there.
I hate to say it, but I just pre-ordered this game. Like when they announced the date, I went over to GameStop and I pre-ordered the not the deluxe version, which is 130, and not the regular version, which was 70, but in the middle there was one. I think it was like 110. I was like,
Oh my
okay, I'll
goodness.
go with that one. It comes with the season pass of whatever the downloadable content's going to be. But
Nice.
the thing is, I was thinking about when I was a kid, a game cartridge, game cartridges would cost like $50, $60. So inflation wise, it's not too bad. They haven't gone up
No,
that much.
it's the $1,000.
Right.
Or maybe it's just that I just don't want to pay it, like for a
Yeah,
video
that's
game, and
fair.
especially like I've been burned on some games too, like the Indiana Jones game, that the Great Circle. I
Yeah.
love the trailer. At the same point, I remember the Wii game. What was it?
Oh
Spear of
no.
Destiny.
I
Oh,
wanted to say Staff of Kings. Is that right? Maybe
maybe it is, or
Spear.
Staff of King Spear. It's along that line. Here, I'll look it up here.
Okay. Staff
Uh,
of
Here, let's see who
King.
finds it faster.
Indiana Jones. Yeah, that was the Wii game. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings.
Staff
Um
of Kings, I was right. Just you beat me by like 3 seconds.
but yeah, I remember that being a disappointment too. Hopefully this one comes out well. And
Yeah,
hopefully this new Star Wars game comes out well. I'm excited for it. It's supposed to be like an open world type game, which, the Jedi Survivor was sort of open world as well. I really enjoyed that. Definitely looking forward to this one coming August 30th. So watch out for more updates on that. The second item this week, we found out more about the Dawn of the Jedi movie being directed by James Mangold. Speaking of
Dial of
Indiana
Destiny.
Jones and the
Yeah.
Dial of Destiny, exactly. So this movie apparently is going to be written by Beau Willimon, who is one
Oh,
of the writers from Andor, Star Wars Andor. So I think
did
when
he
that
not?
news, yeah, go
Did he
ahead.
not also do House of Cards as well?
I believe he did. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I heard that as well. He is an acclaimed writer. He's come from some good TV, and hopefully, when this news dropped, I think people connected Andor to this and thought, okay, he's written some good Star Wars. Maybe he can do a good job
yeah.
on Dawn of the Jedi as well. Are you looking forward to this movie? This is about like kind of the origins of the Jedi Order.
Well, I have to tell you, I was really excited about Charles Soule's group there, and I'm blanking on the name. What's that? The books and
The High
comics.
Republic?
The High Republic, yes.
Yeah.
I was really into that, and I was really interested in the exploration of the characters and meeting Jedi that were very different, and a republic in a world that was unique compared to what we've seen before.
Yeah.
I James Mangold, sign me up. He usually does a fantastic job. Indiana Jones, Ford versus Ferrari, Logan. If he can do all that, yeah, sure, I'm there on opening day.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure we've still got a few years to wait for that one, but interesting to get more news about it. It means likely still in development, which is always good.
Oh, oh, oh God, yeah, in development.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
other thing, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I
What
was
were
going
you
to
going to
say
say?
I'll be really excited when the film is actually shooting, as
Right.
opposed to we're still talking about it because Lucasfilm and their history of, oh, we canceled this. You know,
Exactly. Yeah, they
uh,
haven't had the best record with that kind of thing in recent years, but something that we are definitely getting, so long as we survive to the beginning of June, is the Acolyte, which is a new live action Disney Plus series, also about Jedi. Takes place at the end of the High Republic era, and we got some new photos and interviews coming out of Empire magazine this week. Now, Bill, what's your knowledge of this show, and are you excited for this one?
absolutely little. Very excited. Carrie Ann
Yeah,
Moss wielding a
yeah,
lightsaber. I'm in. It there are very few actors that immediately will pull me in. She was fantastic in The Matrix. I even own the DVD copy of Val Kilmer's Mars movie, Red Planet. She's in that as the commander of the mission.
right.
I'm excited to see Carrie Ann Moss get a big, a fairly big role in a big world, and
Yeah.
see what she can do with it. So
Yeah, you'd think that she would have done more after The Matrix. I mean, remember she was in Memento, one of my
yeah,
favorite movies,
and
but
she was Shia
yeah.
LaBeouf's mom in Disturbing Behavior.
Oh,
Was
I
it
never saw
Disturbing
no
Behavior? Yeah,
Disturbia, is that what it was?
Disturbia. That's
Yeah.
it. Not Disturbing Behavior. Disturbia. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's yeah.
but yeah, I think Acolyte could be pretty cool, and we'll find out just in a couple of months when that starts at the beginning of June. This week's comic books coming out of a galaxy far, far away. We had Star Wars Thrawn Alliances #4, Star Wars The High Republic Phase 3 #6, and Star Wars Darth Vader Volume 3 #45. I have not read Vader yet. I haven't had time, but I read the other two. High Republic is really good this week. Thrawn Alliances, I have a bone to pick about this comic book, Bill. So here's the thing. Marvel Comics announced that they were adapting this novel, Star Wars Thrawn Alliances, which came out in 2018. Read the novel back then, really liked it, was excited for the comic adaptation because I like to see, it's different than bringing a movie or a TV show to comics because novels are not a visual medium, as you know. So you kind
Yeah.
of get to see it illustrated, which is great. 4 issues. I was like, great. It's going to be condensed, nice, concise way to tell this story. I get about halfway through issue 4, which came out yesterday, and I realize they're not going to wrap this thing up.
Oh
And I got
no.
to the end and it says the end question mark, and the story is still
No.
dangling there. And I was like, this is the first time I've ever seen that happen with an adaptation like that. That they're
No.
Yeah, yes, it happened. It happened.
Why?
I
Why
don't
would
know.
no? Why Marvel Comics?
Exactly. I
No.
I kind of tore him a new one in my review that I wrote on laughingplace.com because it feels a little bit like false advertising to me. Like if you're a more I mean, even I didn't know this going into this comic, but if you're an even more casual Star Wars fan than I am, you're going to think you're going to get a full story out of this, and
Oh
you're
my
not. You're left
god.
dangling
Oh my god. Oh
at the end.
no.
And
No.
also, they're releasing these 4 issues in a trade paperback. So that's going to be on the shelf. People are going to see that and they're going to think, "Oh, this is the full story."
No.
And you're not getting the full story there. It's a lie. They're going to continue it later at some
No.
point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god. No. 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 Oh,
I'm
Mike.
glad you're as upset about this as I am, Bill.
Well, no, they've lost me on the comics a long time
Okay.
ago. I just and mostly as you're saying, like there's so many coming out. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to keep up, I don't have the will, the time or desire. But you can't do that if you're going to adapt something like that and then
Yeah.
leave the question mark at the end. I
Yep.
mean,
That's
if
exactly what they did.
I'm the typical casual comic person who will pick it up. If I were to, I'd be mad. Like,
Yeah, 'cause I feel like, if they had just said, "Oh, it's gonna be 8 issues from the beginning," I'd be fine with it. But the fact that you're committing to the 4 issues, each issue is $5, by the way, to purchase it. So there's $20 and you're thinking, "Oh, $20, I'm gonna get the full story." But no, now it's gonna be $40 to get that full novel adaptation in comic book form whenever they continue
no,
that. I'm still kind of fuming
no,
about it, and this was yesterday when I read that
no,
issue. So,
no. Oh, Mike, no, 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 that, no, no, that, no, no, that. I just that's story. Story matters,
right,
and
exactly.
and truthfulness. No,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
I felt deceived. I felt fooled, even though I will buy the rest, and I buy every Star Wars comic that comes out. I would like some transparency, Marvel, please, and Lucasfilm, who they're working with. They got to stay on top of that too.
Oh,
Too. So,
you
uh,
know, it
go ahead.
reminds me. I'll tell you a quick story. I was
Yes.
reviewing a book for Laughing Place. It was a reissue of a book series to try and keep up with the times, and they
Yeah.
were adapting things to so that it could connect with. I won't name it. I won't discuss it because I do like the series, but I will say this: it was billed as we've redone things because some things have changed and it's no longer present.
Uh-huh.
And the first book in the series, as I read it to see the changes, none of the the whole central thesis of the story is based on a place that no longer exists, and they still kept it in the book.
Huh.
But two books down, oh, we added a new attraction here. The story doesn't make sense. It just felt like it felt like a cash grab, and also
Right.
pages were missing in the publication, and it got to the point where I said to you, I think it was either Kyle or Benji, I'm like, I can't review this because my review would be terrible. So I'll just do a summary to be somewhat positive, because I do love the series, but yeah, no, 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 no,
See,
no.
I have no qualms about writing a negative review, and I will do so as I did with this Thrawn comic. You know what else it reminded me of? Now, I was thinking about the movie It, the recent It,
Oh,
because they just called it It, right? The first one was just called It.
yeah.
So if you were not informed, you would go pay your money and you're like, I'm gonna watch It and I'm gonna get the whole story. And then at the end, you realize, oh, this is just the first half of the book. And they did the same thing with Dune.
Oh,
And I am an entertainment journalist. I pay attention to that kind of thing. So I knew Dune was going to be split into two movies. It was going to be split into two movies. But I feel bad for people who didn't know that. And I just can't imagine how cheated they must have felt
oh God,
uh,
yeah,
finding out.
yeah.
But
Oh, yeah, no, no,
let's not dwell on that. Then
no. Let's move on. We're
yeah,
we're bringing
let's
up bad memories of
I
other
know.
stuff.
Let's talk about some merchandise. Speaking of cash grabs, uh, but there's a new build your own lightsaber kiosk in a Once Upon a Toy store, which is at Disney Springs, Walt Disney World in Florida. We've also got the new version of the build your own lightsaber kiosk here at Disneyland Resort in Southern California, and the new elements are pretty cool. My friend Nick again was telling me about he built one that was entirely looked like it was made out of wood, and he said it reminded him of the Wookiee Jedi lightsaber from there's the Wookiee Gungi from the Clone Wars, and he showed up in the Bad Batch actually
Hmm.
in earlier seasons. So he was reminded of that. But some of the other pieces look really cool too. So you can go check that out at Walt Disney World or here Disneyland Resort if you're in California. More merchandise. Her Universe, for the apparel company founded by Ashley Eckstein, and Funko, the toy company, are both celebrating separately 25 years of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which, yes, came out 25 years ago next month. But they have both have new collections of merchandise and apparel inspired by that film. Am I making you feel old, Bill?
Mike, how many times did you see Phantom Menace at the movie theater?
I want to say it was around 5 or 6.
I saw it 3 times,
Okay.
and to think that that was 25 years ago,
Yeah.
like, wow. Okay, time is just winging by us here.
My most ever was Jurassic Park. I was 13 years old. Had nothing to do all summer, so I just kept going to see Jurassic Park. I think I got to 12 or 13 times
Wow, nice.
that
Well
release.
done. Well
Yeah.
done. I almost got to see Speed a fourth time at the theater. That was the next year in the summer of '94. I loved it.
Yeah.
I saw it 3 times, and I was about to go see it a fourth time. And my brother says to me, he's like, "Come on, let's go see something else other than this movie. I've gone with you twice already. I'm not going a third time." And I'd gone a time before on my own, so I was like, all right. But that's coming up 30 years. 30
Oh
years
boy.
since Speed was out.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
wow, time
And
flies.
speaking of the Phantom Menace, that is coming back to theaters as well. I imagine I will be seeing that at El Capitan here in Southern California in Hollywood. So looking forward to getting another, I've said this before on this podcast. I do think every time you watch a movie, you come at it from a different perspective because you have changed since the last time you saw it. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm curious to see what my reaction will be to the Phantom Menace in the theater this time around. And I'll keep an open mind as I always. How about you, Bill? Are you going to see it?
I you know what? It's gonna depend. It will depend
Yeah,
on what else is happening. I will say this about the prequel trilogy. Initially, I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." And after watching all three of them in a row, I see the story, and
yeah,
I see what it was going for, and
Right.
I give it more credit than what I did before. And I always live by the idea that, any Star Wars is good Star Wars, even bad Star Wars.
Mhm.
It's just it's fun to have so much of that world available. So,
Yeah, I agree that the ideas are definitely there, and they're
oh yeah,
very smart. I can't get past the execution, especially in episodes 1 and 2. Episode 3, I'm
yeah.
better with. I can watch that movie and not cringe the whole way through it, but we'll see. Again, I'll keep an open mind. I will go in wanting to love The Phantom Menace, and we'll see, what happens when that
Mike,
happens.
I'm predicting
Yeah.
you're going to be a new fan of Jar
Okay.
Jar after you watch
Yeah, that
Phantom
would
Menace
be
again.
a real Jar Jar head coming out of this. All right, lastly, in Star Wars headlines for this week, I got to go to Disneyland, as I do fairly often for my job, but we were invited to go to Disneyland to check out this new Season of the Force event, which is running from now through, I think it's the end of May over there at Disneyland. And all of the things that come with that. There's new additions to Star Tours. There's new characters showing up in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. There's the new fireworks show, which is very exciting. And I want to actually plug an upcoming episode of this podcast, Who's the Bossk, which is going to be episode number 191. So this is 186. At episode 191, after the Bad Batch is over, when we're done talking about Bad Batch, we're going to do an episode all about Season of the Force. Plus, we'll talk about Star Wars Night, Disneyland After Dark, Star Wars Night, which is
Oh, that'd
coming
be
up
nice.
this week. And we'll talk about the May the 4th celebration at Disneyland. So, all those things will be in one episode. I've got a great guest lined up for that. Not that you're not also a great guest, Bill. It's just that you're not
Thanks,
at
Mike.
Disneyland.
I'm a long ways away.
Exactly. So in conjunction with that, I do also right now want to play a couple of interviews that I did at this Season of the Force media event. Now, if you're watching the stream live on Laughing Place YouTube channel, you're not going to hear this, but if you listen to the episode later on when it's in the audio form, wherever you get your podcast, you will hear two interviews that I did for Season of the Force with Walt Disney Imagineer named Tom Fitzgerald, who very famously has worked on Star Tours since the 80s. So he's like an OG Star Tours Imagineer. We talked to him about the updates made to Star Tours, the attraction. Star Tours, The Adventures Continue. And then right after that, I will play my very brief interview with Lucasfilm Story Group member Matt Martin, who has appeared on this podcast before, and another Disney Imagineer named Michael Cerna. And they're talking about just Season of the Force, like a general overview of what it's all about. So here's my two interviews that I did at this Season of the Force media event down at Disneyland Resort. And those are my interviews with the kind folks from Walt Disney Imagineering and Matt Martin from Lucasfilm. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for chatting with me at that event. And thank you to Disneyland and Disney Parks for inviting Laughing Place down to cover that. Real quickly, Bill, did you get to see Season of the Force last time it was at Disneyland? And do you plan to visit during the celebration this time around?
No, I did not. I would love to. Probably not going to happen.
You're more of a regular down at Walt Disney World, right?
Yeah, we just actually went back for the first time in 5 years last summer, and we're looking at going back again this year. And I would love to get back out to Disneyland and spend some more time there. It's just it's easier to get to Florida. So
That's fair. That's fair. You
yeah,
are on the East Coast of our great North American continent.
yeah.
So let's get into our main topic for this week. And we are still talking about Star Wars, The Bad Batch, as we wind down season 3, the final season of the show here. This week's episode was number 12, episode 12 of the final season, called Juggernaut. And no, that was not the title of this week's episode of X-Men 97. This was the title of the Bad Batch episode, Juggernaut. But before we talk about that, let's dive back into what you were mentioning before, Bill, which is your history and relationship with the Bad Batch. I don't think you've talked about it on this show before, but
I Yeah, well, and Mike,
yeah,
the Bad Batch. My son and I are big fans of Star Wars. My wife and daughter, they like it too, but not as much as him and I do. and he really connected with the clones, and he absolutely loves the clones, collecting his own clones, building his own, and customizing. Oh my goodness, at any point in the basement here, there will be Star Wars clone figures, pieces flying everywhere, and customizations happening. And when the Bad Batch came out, it was a show that was finally about clones, and
Yeah.
it wasn't about Captain Rex or Wolf or anything. But
Cody.
yeah, Cody. We had Echo, we had Wrecker, we had Tech and Crosshair, who, by the way, this season he's a shot to the top as one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And it was so good to see a show that was devoted to those average troopers that were created for that war, for the Clone Wars, and to see how they adapt, and how, even though they're clones, a genetic clone from Jango Fett, they even the fact that they were defective. And I love the fact that they're the defective clones, because they're the most effective. Even though
Yeah.
they get labeled as that, they are the ones that everyone calls whenever something extreme needs to be done. And we were excited for season one, excited for season two, and him and I are making our way through season three, and just seeing how the attention to detail, and I love the fact that Dave Filoni, who started his career at the Clone Wars, is bringing this show forward. And
Yeah.
I love it. I love the world. I love the characters, and I love the voice actors. Just everything about it just is exciting and fun.
It does very much feel like a spiritual and thematic sequel to the Clone Wars cartoon. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously it's a spin-off directly from the final season of the Clone Wars, because they introduced the characters of the Bad Batch over there, and then we got this series after that. But I do feel like Dave Filoni is kind of using this series to put a little period at the end of of the Clone Wars, you know.
You think
Um
it's going to
yeah.
be the final send off, and
I
uh,
think so. I don't think we'll get another animated series in this era right away. I don't know. I have a feeling if they do another cartoon, it's gonna be either the Tales, because you got the Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire coming up. I think they'll do more of that. I don't know if we'll get a full length cartoon. And if we do, it'll probably be set in some other, like, High Republic or something. It'll be set in a
mhm.
different time period. That's my thoughts. But you said you're working your way through season 3. What do you think of what you've seen of this season so far?
I well, and I'll save specifics for episode 12 when we discuss it there. But
Sure.
I love there. This is the season of growth, and the real season of change, and seeing how everyone responds to each other, and just seeing how these soldiers, and they were bred to be soldiers, and they were created to be soldiers, and to see how the old adage of life will find a way from Jurassic Park. You're
Yes.
welcome. I love the fact that these defective clones that were only created to fight in a war and to obey orders question those orders in the face of what they know is right and wrong, and the whole relationship of what they do with Omega, and how Omega has changed. uh it's touching in a way.
Yeah.
It's great to see how, even in these circumstances, and the world, in the universe at this time, the empire is not to be messed with.
Yeah.
Like, they're not as strong as what they will be, but wow, it's a place where either you go along to get along, or you don't go along at all.
Yes.
And I love the fact that it takes the defective clones to show other people the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the theme, isn't it, of this show? Breaking free of your programming, breaking free of what's been literally implanted in you
Yeah.
since you were brought into being. And that theme definitely has been prominent in this season of The Bad Batch. All right. This week's episode was entitled Juggernaut, and Austin made a comment here, the bad Juggernaut. combining the title of the show and the title of the episode. And then let's also say hi to Stephen Rocky Singleton. He's from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and neither Bill nor I are in or anywhere near that place. But
Hi, Steve.
hello, thank you for watching, and let's get into our overall thoughts of this episode, Juggernaut, which was directed by Stuart Lee, written by Ezra Nachman, and the story editor, who has been the story editor for every episode this season, Matt Michnovitz. Bill, do you have general overall thoughts on this week's episode?
Okay. What's the best way? I've been thinking on this. I scanned ahead, and we won't tell my son because
Okay.
he's not watching this. But overall, I was hoping for more. I absolutely love Dr. Hemlock's name. I think that is just without a doubt. If you're gonna name an evil doctor,
Yeah.
got to be Hemlock. At the same point, Omega. Omega as a character who goes from a scaredy little child
Yeah.
to how she, and I mean, they go back. She just seems so much more seasoned, so much more stronger.
Right.
Just she's not a little terrified child anymore. And
Right.
how she acts and what she does. I feel like she is the heart to the Bad Batch, but at the same point, I love seeing her stand on her own and seeing her come out to this character instead of being the tag along of, oh, everybody has to look after her.
Yeah.
Omega's a character I would love to see in live action.
Right.
Yeah, that's my thought. I like it. We're building to something here. And this, I feel like, I think overall, I feel like Juggernaut was very much a placeholder. Okay, we got to do this
Right.
to get to our next, to the end. And I always, I always struggle with that. Like, even in Percy Jackson, the final one, eh, you see the confrontation with Zeus and all that. But the whole preamble to that was them down in Hades, and it didn't
Yeah.
didn't result in anything.
Gotcha.
And that's, I think, if I can give the best comparison to that, I did like seeing Clone Force 99 going out on another mission and seeing how everyone has almost shaken off like Crosshair, like I was mentioning before,
Right.
how he's grown up to be one of my favorite characters. I like the fact that we're seeing changes in everybody, and we're seeing how they are progressing to something. And I think, and I'm a little terrified to think what's going to happen at the end, because I feel like we're going to lose a lot of members here
Mm.
of Clone Force 99, and I don't know if I want to see that.
I don't know if I want to see that either. Yeah, we've been discussing that here and there on these podcast episodes, and I think everybody's kind of in a different place on, who's going to die. Is anyone going to die? Do we really even want to see anyone die? But just to quickly give an overview of what happens in this episode, there's kind of like the bookends at the beginning and the end here of Omega settling into her new home on Mount Tantus, and like getting this guided tour almost by Dr. Hemlock, who you mentioned.
Oh, I love that name.
Yeah.
It's just, I love it. I love it. Hemlock. Never trust somebody named Hemlock.
Right.
Ever.
Well, I remember there was a character on Sesame Street, going back to the Muppets with you, named Sherlock Hemlock. Do you remember that? He was the Sherlock Holmes type detective character, but he
Oh
was
my goodness.
kind of
Sherlock
clueless Muppet character. Anyway, then there's the main story in the middle of the episode, which is the Bad Batch are breaking his name. Let's see, what's the character's name? Rampart. He was Admiral
Yes,
Rampart.
Admiral. He's returned. Yeah.
So his name is Edmund Rampart, and they're breaking him out of an Imperial prison, which is, where we saw him being sent at the end of last season. And they need him because Crosshair has come out and said, well, I don't know how to get back to Mount Tantus, but now that Omega's there, we should probably figure it out. And the one guy who might know is this guy Rampart, and
Well,
he's sitting. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how we've progressed to the point that for most of the show, we've seen Hunter, who is the father figure,
Right.
and we see Hunter guiding everyone else along, but really nurturing and raising Omega. And then in season 3, we get this Omega who's not that little child who needs dad, but has older brother Crosshair who's like, we've got to go get her,
Yeah.
and you don't, if you watch the first 2 seasons, you don't think, oh, this will ever develop that way. But
Yeah.
it makes total sense for them being imprisoned on Tantus and poor Crosshair being experimented on. It's great to see the dynamic shift and change there, and seeing Crosshair really kind of step up and say, no, we've got to go get her instead of
Yeah,
Hunter.
exactly. And the other interesting thing about that to me is that he did have this information. Like Crosshair knew that Rampart was out there and might know how to get to Tantus, but he didn't reveal this until Omega was back in danger. They because Omega wanted to return to Tantus and save all the other clones who were
Hmm.
being held prisoner there. And Crosshair's like, I think probably because of his PTSD coming out of the whole thing, he didn't really want to go back there. But now his hand has kind of been forced. His shaky hand has kind of been forced.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
The other question I had, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on this. This kind of threw me at the beginning of the episode because one of the first things we see when we cut to Pabu, the island planet where the Bad Batch are calling their like home in between missions right now, is the Empire's occupation of this planet is ending. All the ships are leaving, going back up into space, and the Bad Batch are saying that their transmissions are still being blocked, but basically the Empire is leaving and leaving them alone there. And what surprised me about that is that I think the Empire knows they're there. They're basically like enemies of the state at this point, and they are willing and capable of finding. I mean, I guess they don't. The Empire doesn't really know how bad the Bad Batch will find Mount Tantus, but they know they want to, and they know they're very good at what they do. So why, in your opinion, why do you think they were left alive? Why do you think the Empire was okay with like leaving them there with the potential of them coming after Omega again?
I Okay. Okay. Two thoughts on that.
Okay.
One, I hope, and oh dear God, I hope not. I hope that at the end it's not revealed Crosshair was a double agent and he was playing the long con on them, and he turns out being somebody who is not the character that I really like.
I
Uh
hope not too. Yeah, that would be a real bummer.
I feel like the best answer I could possibly think of watching it and thinking about it is that the Empire, as strong as they are, the Empire is not at its peak yet. And so
Yeah.
you had the switchover from the clones to the regular stormtroopers, and there are still some clones. And even going back to the episode when was it Wolf? Was it Wolf that surrounded them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Wolf was leading a team there, and Wrecker was able to talk their way out and basically able to escape. And even the when Crosshair and Omega were trying to get back, and and Omega was gambling and all that. Like they're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy that I don't think is terrified of the Emperor as much as what they should. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too. At this time, we don't really see Vader. We know Vader's there because we know the history of what's going on, and we know
Right.
Vader's around. But the fear of Darth Vader showing up is not there in some of these local jurisdictions. So
Mhm.
I think it's one or the other. I think there's a big setup for something else,
Okay.
or it's just poor management.
Yeah.
When you
Poor
get a
yeah.
bloated bureaucracy, it's hard to be effective when you have so many people out there.
Poor management sounds like the right answer to me, and that's always when I think of, Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's what makes him such a great villain is that you're like, "Oh, wait, finally an Imperial officer who knows what he's doing." It's like
Well,
a
it's like
good
the
military
whole
strategist.
the whole flaw. Yeah, there's an opening on here. Man, I sure hope they don't drop a torpedo down there because it will blow up this
Right.
$100 trillion space station with 50,000 people on it.
Yeah.
That is also great at blowing up planets of our enemies. But yeah, I mean, I look at this episode and I look and I think, okay, it's a placeholder. It's filling the void.
Yeah.
You know, I like the development of Omega, and I even like the fact, you know, showing the time change when she was in prison with Crosshair, and we see the hair growth, and we see, oh, okay, time is passing by. This isn't, you know, just the subtle change of that
Yeah.
from the shorter hair to the longer hair. Yeah,
Right.
like we're putting in days, months, a lot of time here to help propel this story.
The other scene that I thought was really interesting, I kind of sat up on the edge of my seat when this happened, was this conversation at the end with Dr. Hemlock and Omega, where he's walking her toward this room that he calls the vault, which is where they keep the force sensitive children that they have held captive at Mount Tantus. And he's basically explaining to Omega the answer to this question that we've had most of the season, which is why is Omega's blood so important to the Empire, basically. And I feel like I have a slightly better understanding of that now, but not
He
a tremendous.
monologues though, like
Yeah,
he does the ever famous, you know, like I was like, I'm watching, I'm like, oh my god, he's going to do the monologue because we were also watching, and it's funny because we had just watched The Incredibles again
yeah,
as a family
right.
there, and you know, Syndrome is like, oh, you caught me monologuing as he like beats up, and I'm like, oh my god, Hemlock, you are monologuing here, to help tell the story here, and you're just being so evil, right from your name to your actions here. I you know I feel like, and I've read some criticism online where people are like, "Oh, this is just their back end way of trying to explain, well, how we got the emperor again," and
Yeah.
it's just a long way showing from the comics to the shows. Oh, here's the cloning process and all that. Uh, I I think there's a lot of it Star Wars, and there's always been from the beginning of, huh? Like I don't really understand
Right.
how this works, but overall the story is fun and entertaining, so I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Like the M count, and the fact, even go back to the episode where they have to get Fennec Shand,
Right.
where they have to do a job for her to capture some lizard bounty, and she's gonna provide them information on what M count means. It's just I feel like there's a lot of issues of just trying to prove a later story.
Okay.
And I felt that since, you know, about season 2 of The Mandalorian, oh, we're using all this stuff pre to kind of, you know, retcon and kind of help fill the void.
Right.
At the same point, I'm willing to forgive all that because I really like the characters and I love, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of, if I could connect with the characters, and I love Wrecker, he's my favorite. I love Crosshair now. Oh, I didn't for the first two, but connecting with the characters and feeling some sort of empathy for them really helps me to forgive, you know, some narrative issues, as far as what's going on. But yeah, I don't know where I went with that, Mike. You got me on a rabbit hole
No,
of
that's fine. I
different
I
thoughts.
did I agree with you. Yeah, sometimes the dialogue does feel like expository, I think is the
Yeah,
word you would use.
yeah.
I really like that scene, and I was trying to like piece together the science of it, at least within the world of Star Wars. And what he says basically is, oh, when you make a clone, when you're making a clone of somebody who has the Force, or a high M count, which is the scientific way of saying it. I guess the midichlorian levels are high in their blood.
Yeah,
The clone doesn't have the same abilities, right?
no,
Clone doesn't come out with the same level of force abilities. But with Omega's blood, I guess when they are replicating it, or when they replicated Jango Fett, who was the donor for all the clones, his M count remained the same in Omega. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around what he was saying exactly, and ultimately my question is,
hmm,
and I'm still not sure the answer to this, does Omega have the Force?
okay.
Do you have an opinion on that, Bill?
Okay, okay. I'm uh, First of all, anytime I hear the word midichlorians, I always giggle because I think it's
Yeah,
just there could have been multiple choices that George could have used for Phantom
right.
Menace. But anyways, I there's there's a reason why Omega is different. And
Yeah.
there's a reason why Omega, even though she is a clone, she is very, very different from the other clones, and why the Kaminoans were always protecting her. And she seemed to be the one who stood out amongst them all. So I've always thought there's more to her story that we're eventually going to get. And maybe, and gosh, this would be interesting to see if we see her revealed as, well, she's a clone, but not a clone of what you think,
Oh.
and she's a clone of something else, or
Mm.
she's not actually a clone, she's really the actual child of so and so or whoever, and she ends up being a Jedi, and or having force powers. Would we potentially see a spin-off live action version show down the road that has Omega finding her way?
Interesting.
I don't know. That's where I was kind of coming at it from.
Sure.
Like it's just they're, well, in your opinion, Mike, like what are they, when you watch this, what are they saying to you with the story, and like what are they trying to point at for you? Like what do you see? Because I see a Jedi. I see somebody with the Force. I see somebody.
Yeah. I mean, the question when something like that comes up, the question always is, well, why aren't they around later on? Because we have so many stories already that take place later on in the timeline. So if Omega turns out to be a Jedi, why isn't she in any of the later stories? Or
Maybe she
is
died.
she, or does she? I don't know. Is she Ray's mom? I saw that theory out there somewhere. Um,
Oh,
um, but yeah, I don't know. There's so many theories going into these the final episodes of this show, and yeah, it could be many different things, I guess. But the way
Ray's
we leave,
mom.
yeah, I don't know. Who
Oh,
we've met Ray's mom in some of the books, in the Adam Christopher's book Shadows of the Sith. Could it be Omega? I guess the age might line up right, maybe. Who knows? But the important thing right now is that we leave things at the end of this Bad Batch episode with Omega being held prisoner back again on Mount Tantus. She's in that room, the vault with the force sensitive children. We don't know if she's force sensitive yet, I guess. And as far as the Bad Batch goes, they have broken Rampart out of prison. He's going to try to help them get to Tantus. So that's
I
the big
don't, I don't, I don't, I
cliffhanger.
don't, I don't
Yeah.
trust Rampart.
You don't, yeah.
No, no, and I feel like that there's something there. And maybe I'm just wrong. For the whole episode going back to Tantus, we had and actually starting off the season, I was a little surprised it took as long for her and Crosshair to get off Tantus as what it
Yeah.
did. And then going back to it, and I can only assume, and I got to assume that it's going to finish on Tantus. We're going to see the fight to end all fights, and either the place gets blown up, or the Clone Force 99 dies there, helping her to escape.
Yeah.
Because we know ultimately, like, the cloning operation continues. It doesn't stop.
Right.
Otherwise, how else will Palpatine return somehow?
Somehow. Uh,
I
yep.
think the bigger question in Star Wars, the Star Wars lexicon, is somehow Palpatine returned is a lot more understandable than how on earth were you able to get another Death Star, even though it was fully completed, within a few years out, ready to blow up,
Right.
more. But that's
I mean, it was
like,
still under construction. There was still big chunks of it that were not
yeah.
finished yet. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you would like to say about this episode, or anything else that you're looking forward to in the
I
remainder of the Bad Batch?
I like Omega. I like where she's going. Well, I understand why we're back at Tantus. I would have I would have liked to have seen I would have liked to have seen the build up to a space battle at the end.
Yeah.
But I think out of all this, I think there's something that is building for Omega's character because she has got a lot of story time in this season, and I don't think it's going to be one off here. I would have never thought Rebels would have returned
Right.
in the live action version,
That's true.
and basically that's what Ahsoka was. I feel like we're going to see more of Omega down the road.
Okay. I think that's a good bet that we will not have seen the last of Omega at the end of this series. I'll put money down on her surviving. Of all the characters, Omega will most likely survive.
Yeah,
And I bet we'll see her again in some form, animated or live action or novels, comics. There's so many ways to explore
I couldn't
the
even
uh
keep up.
the galaxy.
If it's not on Disney Plus, I'm going to struggle. So,
Right. Okay. All right. Let's get into our final segment here on Who's the Boss. This is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week, I actually loved this, and it was something that I was like, "Oh, it's probably just going to be okay," but it ended up being great, and I'm so happy about it. It was the series finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which
I
has
saw your
been
post. Yeah,
yeah, I just adored it. They really hit it out of the park, in my opinion. And I don't even want to spoil it, but I will say if you're a longtime Seinfeld fan and you brought that fandom with you into Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is sort of the pseudo spin-off of Seinfeld, um, you will definitely appreciate the finale. And that's all I'll say about that. I loved it. Bill, have you been watching or reading or playing anything lately that's not Star Wars related?
I am reading a book called City on Mars, and it's a nonfiction look at what it would take for colonies to be built either out on the moon or out on Mars. And these two authors are they're diving deep into every little thing. And we see the Star Trek, Star Wars. Oh yeah, there's a million people here, and they go into everything from well, we don't even know what it would be like to have someone pregnant up in space, and how are they going
Uh,
to respond, and how is the development of a baby going to happen, and we're going to need mental health experts here to help, and we're not just going to launch 100 people and they'll build up their colony. We're going to have to prepare everybody because unlike here on Earth where we have access to everything, it's a lot more difficult when you're out on Mars, and the nearest person, the nearest psychiatrist or the nearest medical, how are you going to do open heart surgery? Well, you're going to need all the technology there, and it's fascinating. It's a slow read, but it is such it's an incredible look at the growth of what future colonies out in space would look like, and the things that a lot of people who promote the idea of a colony on Mars or colony on Moon really don't talk about and really have kind of forgotten about. And it's a great read.
what's the title again?
A colony or a city on Mars.
A City on Mars. Okay.
Yeah,
That sounds very interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
it's awesome.
I'll have to check that out. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Boss. I want to thank my guest, Bill Gowsell. Bill, thanks again for coming back on the show to talk about Star Wars with me.
Thanks a lot, Mike, for having me back, and I cross my fingers that Crosshair doesn't die.
Anywhere that you would like to send people or anything you'd like to plug before we sign off here?
Yeah, actually, you can check out all my reviews of the Touchstone and Hollywood picture films on laughingplace.com.
Yeah.
And next week, you should see my review for Under the Bridge, and I'll be recapping that show every week for probably the next 8 weeks.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
I would like to plug my other podcast, Pop Culture Explorers Club, which is I think it's at its 9th episode this week, so still pretty new. This time we talked about action movies, our favorite action movies, including Die Hard was my choice. Drew, my co-host, picked Aliens, the sequel,
Ooh,
and
oh,
then
those are
our
good choices.
our guest chose The Matrix. So great episode. Great 3 movies that we talked about there. And Bill, we got to have you on that show if you want to
Oh,
think up anything in pop culture that's not Star Wars. So we'll love to have you on to talk about
if
that.
you ever want to talk about speed and the
Okay.
love of speed
Yeah.
and Die Hard on a bus, or as Homer Simpson would say, the bus that couldn't
The
slow down.
bus that couldn't slow down. I
Oh,
love
Mike,
it.
I could talk
Yep.
your ears off for hours. How much I love that movie.
That sounds like a great episode. Okay, that's it for Who's the Boss this week. As always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. Next week on the show, we'll be talking about Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 13. My name is Mike Celestino. I'm on Instagram at Who's the Boss Pod. Thank you out there, whoever was watching live and commenting along. And thank you to everybody listening to the podcast in audio form later on. Again, my name is Mike. Thanks again. Thanks, Bill. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.